Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to Gills and the Blood TV for our latest episode. It is Thursday, which means weekly roundup plus match preview, and plenty to get through tonight in terms of Thursday's edition of the Medway Messenger, and then obviously looking ahead to MK Dons. Unfortunately, I'm on my own tonight. Boz is doing extra night shifts in the run-up to Christmas, so he's flat out. And if he's not at work, he's probably sleeping or eating shreddies somewhere. So yeah, you'll have to put up with me myself. But Saturday, myself, Boz and Stocky will all be at the ground for the matchday live against MK Dons, but we'll get onto them in more detail in a little while. First things first, Mark Burns' operation was a success early part of the week, so he now starts the long, hard slog back to full fitness from his ACL injury suffered in the recent home game against Sunderland, so we wish Burner all the best. And then big news broke on Twitter this afternoon and Facebook and through all the official club social media platforms. Jack Tucker had been the subject of a bid from an unnamed championship side late last night, it seems, and Chairman Paul Scully turned it down. Twitter and Facebook went into, not meltdown, but overdrive, I suppose is the right word, and the general consensus, well, we need to get this young man signed to a long-term contract. Lo and behold, about an hour later, another tweet from the club. Jack Tucker has this afternoon signed a new long-term contract. It's not been disclosed how long for, but it does say it will keep him at the club for the next few years. So would imagine it's at least 2 or 3 seasons, which is great, and well done to Steve Evans and Paul Scully for getting that sorted out and persuading Jack to stay. I think it's the correct call for him and for us. I had to listen to another interesting episode of the Gills Fancast last night, and I spoke to James, who hosts that with Reece, and said that I didn't agree with James's labelling of Jack Tucker as one of the best centre-backs in the division yet, because he's only played 20 games. You cannot be one of the best in a division after 3 months. You have to do it over 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons and consistently put in top performances over multiple years. But he has all the tools to be one of the best at this level and probably higher. But I think it suits us, like I say, and him superbly that he'll continue to get regular football here. We'll continue to look after him, and hopefully we'll get plenty more games out of him before he does move on to pastures new. So congratulations to everyone who sorted that out, and it's great to hear that Jack will be staying for the foreseeable future. And on the subject of contracts, back page of today's Medway Messenger, Saints duo set to stay. Steve Evans talking about Thomas O'Connor and Alfie Jones, and is hopeful that both will stay till the end of the season. Obviously, Alfie does have a deal till the end of the campaign with us, but Southampton can recall him in January, which we're all keeping our fingers crossed doesn't happen. And Thomas O'Connor contract runs till the end of January, I believe, and it's being spoken about that we're looking to extend that for the rest of the campaign. Again, similarly to Jack Tucker, I think it makes sense for both. I know a few weeks ago there was talk of Tom O'Connor being the subject of interest from championship sides, but he could invariably go there and then get stuck on a bench. He's playing pretty much every game for us at the moment, whether that's at left back or the left hand side of a diamond in midfield. Alfie Jones, 90% of the time, has been absolutely immaculate, so I think it would be great for us. More importantly, I think it'd be great for them to stay and get a full season under their belts of competitive first-team action in League One. And the other one just inside, Loanee Lee waiting for Stendhal's call. Obviously, Oliver Lee, another half-season loan deal, runs out 27th of January, according to the paper. So Steve Evans is trying to be in contact with Daniel Stendhal, the ex-Barnsley manager who's recently taken over at Tynecastle. They are languishing at the bottom of the SPL at the moment. I think they're only off the basement on goal difference. Got beat in the week by Celtic, really struggling. So we have to keep our fingers crossed. I think that Ollie Lee could be one that we can extend for the rest of the campaign, but it is out of our hands, and it might be the case that Stendhal decides he wants all of his loanees to come back and he can have a proper look at them for a month and then make a decision. But it would be a real shame if we did lose Ollie for the second half of the campaign, because despite maybe not being as consistent as we've hoped and we've mentioned on the channel plenty of times, myself and Stocky and Boz, I think on his days as good as anyone in that position in the division, and he's been involved in some big moments for us this season. So fingers crossed we can keep all 3 of them loanees. And yeah, there's a theme tonight. It seems to be that either contract renewals, extensions, or clubs interested in our players because we're playing well, which is refreshing to talk about, as much as you don't want our players to be garnering too much attention because you don't want to lose them. But yeah, Steve also talks of Joe Walsh, our young 17-year-old goalkeeper, No official bids have been made, but apparently there is interest from the giants of the English and the Scottish game, such as Everton and Celtic, and apparently a couple of German clubs have had a look as well. And I know this came out a few weeks ago, a couple of months maybe, and then went quiet, but it seems that plenty of good sides are keeping an eye on young Joe, and I'll reiterate it again, I think he needs to stay with us at the moment because it'll be more beneficial for his long-term progress, because he will get games for us. He's clearly the number 2 now, so if anything was to happen to Jack Bolam, either an injury or a suspension, then Joe would probably come into the side. He's played a few EFL Trophy games this season, and despite one slightly poor performance at Ipswich, I don't think he's looked entirely out of place at all. So another one to keep an eye on. And I think, let me just have a quick look, where did I read it? There's also been talk of Conor Ogilvie attracting interest from clubs higher up the football pyramid. Here it is. Steve Evans says, I've had managers ask me about him. I had managers ask me about Conor Ogilvie in the last week from the Championship. People notice when you are doing well. Like I said, it's good to read about that players are interested in our footballers because we're doing well, which means they're doing things right and we're picking up good performances and good results. But at the same time, you don't want too much attention on them because we don't want to sell them. We're trying to build something here, and I think if Steve Evans is given time, then there is a possibility that at worst we could become a very competitive team at the top end of League One. Currently 6 points off the playoffs, which I think I tweeted in the week was Steve Evans' pre-season target, and invariably if we win at the weekend against MK Dons, we could be sat 3-4 points off the top 6 if other results all go our way. But the main thing would be, I think a victory would take us comfortably into the top half, which would be superb after a pretty slow start to the campaign. And before we get on to the match preview, Evans' gift to those in need is a headline inside as well. Gillingham boss Steve Evans has been doing his bit to spread some festive cheer. Now, I know this won't sit well with some of our fans, I call them, who like to have an agenda and think that the bloke is a crook regardless of what he's done since previous misdemeanours, if you want to call it that. But I think we have to applaud Steve Evans. He's been going out into the local community and supplying food and drinks and that type of thing for homeless people in Medway and Gillingham High Street, and he says he can go about his business and do it without being recognised. And there's quite a nice story. He said, this is reference to a bizarre conversation last week. One guy said he asked me, after saying thank you, he asked me what would brought me down here as I was Scottish. I said I was working for Gillingham Football Club. I didn't say who I was or what I was doing. He said, oh, you're playing against West Ham soon, and then asked if I was planning to go. I told him I was planning to, but Paul Scully is my chairman and I haven't got there yet. But yeah, I think round of applause to Steve Evans if he is going out into the local community and doing that. Says he goes out with his wife and his daughter, and it's something he's done at previous clubs, Peterborough and Leeds as well. So fair play. Really is a nice touch from the gaffer, going out and looking after those that were less fortunate than himself. Right, that is the newspaper wrapped up. On to Saturday when we host this lot. MK Dons are in Kent at the weekend for a 1 PM kickoff. Gills fans, do not forget it has been brought forward 2 hours by the EFL after agreement between the two clubs. And let's have a look at the comparative form. Last 6 in League One, Gills win, lose, win, lose, win, draw. So we've taken 10 from the last 18 available, which is a record not to be sniffed at. MK Dons lost, drawn 1. So only 4 points from the last 18, but them 4 points have come in their last 2 games against Doncaster and Oxford, I believe. In terms of home and away records, Gills have taken 9 points from the last 18 available at the Priestfield. That's 3 wins and 3 defeats. On the road, MK Dons are frankly shocking. They've lost 5 and drawn 1 of their last 6. So that draw at Doncaster is the solitary point they've garnered from the last 18 available. Like I say, they have taken 4 from the last 6. But prior to that, they'd lost 4 on the spin. They've only scored 2 goals in 6 away games recently and drawn blanks in 4 of them. Us, we've won every other game in League One, like I say, in the last 6. So if you're looking for a pattern, it means, fingers crossed, we should win at the weekend. And we've won our last 2 at home without conceding against Sunderland and Lincoln City. In terms of ex-Gills for MK Dons, there are a few. Bailey Cargill, Brennan Dickinson and Jordan Houghton should all be hoping to feature. And in terms of goal threats, Joe Mason, highly rated, but has had plenty of injuries. Recently got back in the side, has played 7 times since the start of November and scored 3 goals. I believe he got the winner last weekend against Oxford, which ended the Yellows a long unbeaten run stretching back to September. So that's a really good result for MK Dons. Another name that will be familiar to Gills fans, because it was rumoured that we were on the verge of signing him for about 2 weeks in the summer. But Kieran Agard, they never did arrive. I think I was one of a few that wasn't that fussed that we didn't bring him in. I said I thought that he's a decent striker in League Two, but he's never really been as consistent in League One. And I think 3 goals in 21 appearances points to that as well. And he's only had 1 less red card than goals this season. He's been dismissed twice. So they'll cause us a threat. Obviously, they're going to be coming with a little bit more confidence now, having taken 4 points from the last 2 fixtures. But I think it'll be up to us to stamp our authority on the game, earn the right to go and play. And if we defend as well as we have in the last 6 weeks at home, then I think we'll be absolutely fine. In terms of our team news, there's no Mark Byrne. We know that. We won't see him for the rest of the season, I'd imagine. Best thing we can hope for, I'd imagine, is getting him back into early pre-season and getting fully fit for the new campaign. In terms of the team, I know Steve Evans said he wasn't entirely happy with a few at Fleetwood last week and it wasn't a great performance. He mentioned that Tom O'Connor was tired. He alluded to the fact that Mika Mandron slipped back into his ways from the beginning of the season and didn't really affect the game, despite setting up the equaliser. And yeah, obviously Jack Tucker was at fault for the goal. We know that. And we said at the time it was a learning curve. But I would stick with the same back 5. So my team would be Jack Bonham in goal, Barry Fuller, Max Amar, Jack Tucker and Connor Ogilvie. I think we leave Jack in. We don't want to ruin his confidence by pulling him out the side as soon as he makes an error. I think he'd be buoyed by the fact that he signed a new contract today. In front of them, I'd have Alfie Jones at the base of the diamond, Stuart O'Keefe from the right. I would take Thomas O'Connor out this week. I would play Ben Pringle from the left to add balance. It was probably a toss-up between him or Mark Marshall, but with O'Keefe probably playing from the other side, I'd veered more towards Ben Pringle. I would have Regan Charles Cook in the 10. Nothing really wrong that Ollie Lee's done, but obviously we've got 4 or 5 games coming up in the space of 2.5 weeks, so we need to rotate. I would stick with the front 2 for this week, Mika Mandron and Brandon Hanlon. Obviously, Mika would have to perform better than he did against Fleetwood, and I'm sure, to coin a phrase of an ex-manager, Alex Jakubiak will chomping at the bit to get on. My bench would be Alex Jakubiak, along with Joe Walsh, Tom O'Connor, Matty Willock, Ollie Lee, Mark Marshall and Mikael and Jolly. Right, as always, score prediction time. As I've said, I think MK will arrive with a little bit more confidence than maybe if they turned up a couple of weeks ago. An excellent result against Oxford, a decent draw against the Doncaster side that are out of form, but it's still a tough place to go. We know that. We went up there first day of the season. But if we do everything that we've been doing at home recently and been doing generally everywhere in terms of defending properly, pressing from the front, making it hard for teams to play out from the back and play through us, I'm going to go for a score line of Gillingham 2, MK Dons 0, and I'm going to back Brandon Hanlon and Ben Pringle to score our goals. Right, that is enough from myself this evening. I'll let you all crack on with your evening. We will see you Saturday. Like I say, all 3 of us will be there for a match day live. Do pop over and say hello. Be great to see some, even say Merry Christmas before the festive period starts next week. You know where we are. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. I'll tell you every video. And until next time, up the Gills.